mingle. I know we've got a few more folks coming in through the registration table. I know there's other folks that are going to be joining us here shortly. Really excited about the program today, and we want to make sure that everybody has an opportunity to be comfortable, get a chance to learn the valuable information here today. We're going to get started in just a second as everybody kind of refreshes their cups, gets everything ready. We're going to get started here in just one moment. So thank you. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for grabbing a seat. With this, I'm going to turn it over to our Masters of Ceremony today, the one and only, which I think everybody, particularly in this room, but if you don't know him, you will get to know him today, our regional administrator, dear friend, Mr. Mike Fong.
Well, good morning, everybody. So I want to start with something that I think this room will be very familiar with, and I saw it happen in Idaho when I was in town in Boise just a couple weeks ago. But nothing like kicking off an event with this many friends in the room than with a group selfie. And then for all of you to get up and we're going to do 2 minutes of quick selfies, get them out of the way right away. Hashtag WIAPI, hashtag Seattle City Hall, whatever works. National Ace, but let's get a quick selfie with everybody right now and get this done, and then that way we can focus on the program the rest of the day. So everybody on your feet, everybody look this way. All right, here we go.
All right, everybody join in. All right, 1, 2.
Here we go.
All right. I see you in the back there. Hang on, we're gonna do another one there. All right.
Big wave,
fantastic,
everybody.
fantastic.
Okay,
all right, hang on. All right, one more. Yes, one more.
Everybody look this way. Everybody stand up.
Okay.
Here we go. 1, 2, and 3.
All right.
Fantastic.
All right, that'll work. Thank you, everybody. Well, good morning, and welcome to Seattle City Hall. Welcome to Seattle. I know we have lots of friends here from Washington, D.C., but I also know that even regionally we have folks that have traveled from Portland and the Yakima Valley, and I know I met someone from San Francisco today. So it really is a regional convening, and really excited that so many of you can join us, and also by extension all the folks watching us online, and then for all the folks that you touch in your communities after today's event. So thank you for being here, and thank you for joining us. So it is my honor, and today I'm wearing 2 hats, as Ben introduced me. I am Mike Fong, SBA's Regional Administrator for the Pacific Northwest. So I oversee our field operations in Washington State, Idaho, Oregon, and Alaska, home to 1.3 million small businesses. And it's been an incredibly rewarding year plus that I've been in this role. But today I'm also standing in for some of our friends from D.C. as a representative for the White House Initiative for Asian Americans, Native Hawaiians, and Pacific Islanders. And it's a great honor for our city to host one of 8 economic summits that WIAPI is hosting in the White House across the country. And of course, this is the best one, but you know, so. And I know we're joined by many both appointed and elected officials. We have community leaders. We have small business owners. And I'm just really excited to be able to get everyone together here at City Hall, People's Hall, to have great conversation around so many different conversations, both on the community side, community resources for organizations, but also what we've really wanted to do under the Biden administration to really leverage the power of all of government together in a way to make sure we are making are putting our best foot forward to not just invest in America, but invest in all of you. And the AA and NHPI community is such a crucial community to both our, not just our community here in the greater Seattle area, but all across the country for economic prosperity and growth. And just really excited that WIAPI has chosen us as one of the cities to have this conversation, and I'd just like to recognize the team from DC and our WIAPI friends for picking Seattle as an economic summit location. So thank you. Now, just a few acknowledgments. The White House's initiative and under the president's direction reconstituted WIAPI and reestablished this in May of 2021 and created the President's Advisory Commission. Both entities co-chaired by members of the President's Cabinet, including Health and Human Services Secretary Javier Becerra and U.S. Trade Representative Ambassador Catherine Tai. They're tasked with a really ambitious goal and vision, really, to center equity in the work that we're doing, with a particular focus around the AA and NHPI community, especially given the challenges coming out of the pandemic, some of the challenges associated with Asian hate that we continue to experience and the lingering effects to this day. But all of that to say that we also have incredible local representation at the national level on the commission, including today here in this room. I know I saw from our hometown, Commissioner Teresita Batayola is here. I know Commissioner Grace Huang was going to be here as well. Is she? There she is. And then we're also very honored to be joined by another member of the commission. Let me see here. Ajay is here, right here. No, there he is. Great. Thank you for joining us from California today, correct? So great. It's great to have you. So in addition to our commissioners, we have a number of folks in the room representing members of our congressional delegation, Senator Murray's office, and I know I saw folks from Congresswoman Strickland's office, Congressman Adam Smith, and others. Actually, if you're representing a member of our delegation, if you could just stand up just to be acknowledged really quickly, that way folks know you're in the room and know where to find you. Thank you. And then I want to also acknowledge co-chairs of our regional, both our regional network for WIAPI, but also our national co-chairs for this effort. I know Ben and Paul are in the room. Ben, you've met already. Paul was taking photos. So if you guys could stand up or just wave to everybody, we'll make sure folks know that you're here. And then our regional network representatives, Stephen Yim and Davis Jen, I don't know if they're in the room or not, but again, big thanks to them for their efforts locally as well. Great. So I, again, want to emphasize that, throughout the day, really please take advantage of the opportunity, not just from our federal and state and local resource partners to engage around the topics that are so important to all of you in community, but also for your small businesses in terms of growth and expansion and your ideas and thoughts going forward. Whether you're launching a new small business or are looking to expand your existing operation, really take advantage of not only the government resources of the room through the conversations we're going to have, but also the networking opportunity. It's not often that we can have so many people from both nonprofit and private sector and government together, philanthropy, to be able to serve as a resource to meeting your goals and vision for what you want to accomplish in your communities, but also be a force multiplier for all of us in terms of what you learned today or who you meet today to bring back to your communities and engage as many folks as possible. We are really trying to leverage the opportunity here today to meet community where they are and be able to bring resource to you in the most effective and direct way possible. So, and just a few data points. In Washington State, we have 65,000 AA and NHPI owned small businesses. This is up from roughly 45,000 just 5 years ago. So over 35% growth in just 5 years. And it really is a testament to the creativity, the innovation, the passion of small business ownership across our state. And that level of growth has been twice as fast as the overall small business growth in the state of Washington. So again, take advantage of today's conversations, and let's keep growing the economy, but also growing jobs and opportunity in our region and all across Washington. So with that, I want to go ahead and we're going to start the day with, first of all, Shana from Senator Murray's office as a greeting from the Senator. And I'm going to go and ask her to come up and read that letter from Senator Murray. So thank you. Please welcome Shana from Senator Murray's office.
Thank you, Mike. Good morning. I promise I'm going to be brief. You're probably going to hear that, but it will be true today. So this is a letter from Senator Murray. While I'm sorry I cannot join in person, I want to thank everyone who worked so hard to organize this event. I'm proud to say that Washington State has a thriving small business community and strong local economies across the state, and so much of that is thanks to the contributions of our Asian American, Native Hawaiian, and Pacific Islander communities. Events like these are an important reminder that when we work to expand opportunities for everyone, we all do better. I know the past few years have been tough, which is why I worked nonstop from the very outset of the pandemic to make sure resources were getting to the communities that needed help the most. Whether it was access to COVID testing and the vaccine, to ensuring that SBA prioritized relief dollars for small and minority-owned businesses, it was an all-hands-on-deck effort to make sure our small businesses not only kept their doors open, but could come back stronger than ever. We made great progress, but there's so much more to do. And whether that's delivering on a comprehensive national paid leave program or making childcare affordable for every family, I'm focused on key economic issues that will support every small business owner. I will also keep working with the Biden-Harris administration to ensure all small businesses, especially in the AA and NHPI communities, have access to the tools and resources they need to be successful, from expanding language access across federal programs, prioritizing equity in the grant-making process across agencies, expanding outreach and engagement to AA and NHPI communities, and more. I'm so thankful to each and every one of you for the work you do to partner with our state and local leaders to make sure we're all doing everything we can to help our Asian American, Native Hawaiian, and Pacific Islander small businesses succeed in Washington State. And while I'm fighting for you over in that other Washington, I look forward to coming home to the better Washington and seeing you all as soon as possible. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Shana, and thank you, Senator Murray. So we're going to go ahead and turn to a quick video from Congresswoman Jayapal, who couldn't be here today, but was able to send a video for us, a short video. But I also want to acknowledge, again, another partner in today's endeavor, and that's the great work the National ACE does on behalf of the AA and NHPI community all across the country. You'll hear from Chi-Ling Tong in a bit, but I wanted to quickly acknowledge National ACE's role in today's event and also thank them for their incredible leadership. Thank you. Okay, Annika?
I'm Congresswoman Pramila Jayapal, and I'm honored to represent Washington's 7th Congressional District in the House of Representatives, where I also serve as the chair of the Progressive Caucus. Thank you to the White House Initiative on Asian Americans, Native Hawaiians, and Pacific Islanders for inviting me to share a few words with you today. You could not have picked a better place for your annual economic summit than our great city of Seattle. As the first South Asian American woman ever elected to Congress, I am keenly aware of how critical it is that diverse voices have a seat at the table, and I'm so grateful to represent a community that values both Asian American and NHPI small businesses and culture. Last month, I joined our local Chamber of Commerce to tour local businesses and had the opportunity to stop by many AA and NHPI-owned spots. It is always incredible to see how diverse businesses leave their mark on our community. I am very grateful to the Biden-Harris administration for lifting up diverse voices and prioritizing AA and NHPI communities. They've taken stronger steps to stop Asian hate, expand language access across federal programs, increase diversity in the federal workforce, and invest in our communities. There is always more work to be done, but we've made progress. And I thank the administration for enacting the first ever national strategy to advance equity, justice, and opportunity for AA and NHPI communities. Here in Congress, we've been proud to be partners in that fight by passing the American Rescue Plan, the Inflation Reduction Act, and so much more. We've been on the front lines of the fight to ensure that we make major investments into small businesses and communities across the country. So thank you so much for having me and for the hard work that you are all doing to lift up diverse voices and support AA and NHPI communities. Please know that whenever you need a champion in Congress, I'm here and ready to stand with you.
And thank you to Congresswoman Jayapal for that greeting. Now I'm going to bring up our next speaker. And true to form, we're already 15 minutes behind schedule, so we're right on, right as planned, exactly. So I'm going to bring up my good friend Toshiko Hasegawa, who is Executive Director for the Washington State Commission for Asian Pacific American Affairs and also Commissioner for the Port of Seattle. Toshiko, here you go.
Thank you, Mike. Good morning, beautiful community. My name is Toshiko Hasegawa. I am Vice President of the Port of Seattle Commission. I am also Executive Director of Washington State's Commission on Asian Pacific American Affairs. And so I'm so pleased this morning to extend my welcome on behalf of the Port, CAPA, and Governor Jay Inslee. And I'd like to thank WIONPI for coming back to the Emerald City here in the Evergreen State for the Economic Summit. As you know what, there are 3 microphones happening here, so I'm just gonna turn this one off and put that over there. As one of the primary points of entry for AA and NHPIs into the United States and home to some of the most diverse zip codes and school districts in the nation, I think that Washington State has a really important role to play in the national conversation. And I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge and thank the members of our federal delegation and the representatives who are here today, because you make us so proud every single day representing everyday people while you do your work in Congress. And in the past year, there have been unprecedented, meaningful investments at the federal, state, and local level to rebuild our country's infrastructure, industries, and our workforce. And so now we all need to be laser focused in making sure that the rising tide of our recovery is going to lift everybody's ships. So this morning, I would just like to frame the ensuing conversation with some foundational knowledge about AA and NHPI community demography, because the trends that we observe here in Washington State are a microcosm for what we're observing nationwide. And at CAPA, we feel that data, when it's good and it's aggregated, can illuminate both the magnitude and the complexity of our community's needs. According to CAPA's report, based on 2020 census data and supplemented by 2020 American Community Survey data, Asian, Native Hawaiian, and Pacific Islander communities, alone or in combination with another race, have grown by about 40.76%, from about 675,000 people in 2010 to almost 950,000 people in 2020. So at this rate, ANHPIs as a conglomerate will be the primary minority population in just a matter of a couple of years. We also found that statewide, 12.6% of NHPIs and 9.2% of the Asian population live below poverty. Though there are some deeply disconcerting outlier counties in Washington state, for example, in Whitman County, 94.8% of the NHPI population lives below poverty. Filipino, Korean, Vietnamese, Cambodian, and all Native Hawaiian and Pacific Islander ethnic groups earn less than whites per capita income. And in every single Asian, Native Hawaiian, and Pacific Islander ethnic group, women made less than their male counterparts, with Asian women earning roughly 52 cents to the dollar of Asian males, and NHPI women earning 66 cents to the dollar of NHPI males. So unfortunately, racial and gender disparities are not new. And at the state, we have deployed strategies and programs to address inequities and operationalize anti-racism. We have insights from structured interviews and listening sessions held with AA and NHPI business owners struggling from the compounding impacts, as Mike mentioned, of the shutdown, anti-Asian racism, and vandalization. And we've also developed tools to be able to equip them with resources. To name just one of those resources, at Washington State, we now have Department of Commerce's Small Business Resiliency Network, whereby community-based organizations themselves provide technical support to minority businesses in a culturally specific way. And the feedback has been tremendous. Everyone here today comes to the table with insights and lessons learned to share. So I'm just going to leave you with a quote that I heard from a Pinay auntie who was organizing against human trafficking. She was speaking at an event in Tagalog through a translator, and what she said stuck with me. Economic empowerment leads to social justice. We have our work cut out for us, and I wish you all the very best for a meaningful program ahead. I'd now like to bring up my good friend and colleague, Port of Seattle President and CAPA Commissioner, Sam Cho.
I'm going to be the contrarian here and use this mic. This is working, right? Excellent. Thank you so much, Commissioner Hasegawa, for the introductions. Good morning. How's everyone doing? Great. My name is Sam Cho, President of the Port of Seattle Commission. First and foremost, I would just like to take a moment to thank the White House Initiative on Asian Americans, Native Hawaiians, and Pacific Islanders for choosing to bring their economic summit to our little corner of the country. I don't need to tell this audience this, but here in the Pacific Northwest, we take great pride in having a strong entrepreneurial spirit. From Microsoft to Amazon, Boeing to Nike, Starbucks to Nordstrom's, the Pacific Northwest is home to some of the most innovative companies in the world. And while the companies I just listed may be massive Fortune 500 companies, oftentimes we forget that every one of these companies started out as a small business. As the president of the Port of Seattle Commission, I have the great privilege of leading the largest economic development agency in our region. And I'm proud to say that one of our highest priorities as an agency is to promote women or minority-owned businesses, or WIMBYs. People often forget that the Port has a massive opportunity that could catapult small businesses to their next level of growth. For instance, did you know that between the years of 2021 and 2022, the Port of Seattle awarded 316 contracts totaling $123 million to minority-owned businesses. When it comes to our airport, dining and retail, 34% of our airport contracts are directly with WIMBY businesses. Those WIMBY business contracts account for $136 million in total revenue. That accounts for 36% of total airport dining and revenue. That's just on the airport dining and retail side. Despite these big numbers, we at the Port of Seattle have ambitious goals to triple the number of WIMBY business participation. But the reality is that we can't do it without you. One of the most common excuses that I hear for not having more WIMBY businesses is, Commissioner, there's simply not enough WIMBY businesses out there. well, I know that this community can show them what's up. Whether you are a restaurant owner or a general contractor, we need you in the pipeline of WIMBY businesses that are willing and able to work with the Port of Seattle. This is especially crucial as the Port of Seattle embarks on a historic level of spending, $5.3 billion in capital projects over the next 5 years. Later today, you'll hear in one of our breakout sessions from our very own Director of Diversity and Contracting, Mian Rice, on all the different ways that you can think about working with us at the Port. And as you'll learn from Mian, it's not easy to do business with the Port. But we are willing, ready, and able to provide you with the assistance you need to be successful as a WIMBY business partner with the Port of Seattle. Not only are we working to promote WIMBY businesses at the Port, but because we are a port, we're also working to help promote small businesses in exporting to international markets beyond our region. In fact, we are working in partnership with the U.S. Small Business Administration, Greater Seattle Partners, the City of Seattle, and the Washington State Department of Commerce to develop an export accelerator program that will help small businesses find new markets internationally and sell their products abroad. As a port authority, this is a service offering that we can provide given our expertise in supply chain and logistics. As a former business owner and exporter myself, I may have a little bit of a bias towards this, promoting this program. But look, on a more serious note, it's been a tough 3 years for our community. You all know, as well as I do, that the COVID-19 pandemic and the anti-Asian hate had disproportionately hurt AA and NHPI businesses, which is why I am so grateful for the Biden-Harris administration and the keen attention they are paying to our community. But I'm also grateful for you, for taking the time out of your day to be here with us in this moment. I'm sure many of you have your own businesses to run right now. And most importantly, I hope that this time together allows you to not only learn more about the resources that are available to you to grow your businesses, but also serves as a rare opportunity for you to voice your opinions, your concerns, and yes, even your complaints to these DC swamp creatures that have come to visit us. And I can say that because I used to be a DC swamp creature myself. And let me just say this, I can personally endorse with many of these visitors here from DC being good friends and former colleagues of mine, that they will take your voice back to the White House and fight for you. So thank you again for being here. Thank you to the White House Initiative for being here. And I'm wishing everyone a fruitful economic summit. Thank you. Oh, excellent. And with that, I'd like to now introduce someone who really doesn't really need an introduction, but at least in the API business community, but I'd like to go ahead and introduce the President and CEO of National ACE, Chiling Tong.
Thank you for your remarks. My name is Chiling Tong. I'm from Washington, D.C. I hope I don't look like a swamp creature to you. National Asian Pacific Islander American Chamber of Commerce, called National ACE. We represent 2.65 million AAPI small business owners and entrepreneurs, and we have 120 affiliate AAPI chambers and partners throughout the country, and I have seen many of them here. Greater Seattle Chinese Chamber of Commerce, Philippine American Chamber of Commerce, and also other partners. Thank you so much for bringing, the attendees. Thank you so much for coming this event. It means a lot to us. I really want to thank Mike. Thank you to put good show, and also with VIP staff, Monica, under the leadership of Crystal Kai. I tell you, in Washington, D.C., the people like Erica Morosugo, Crystal Kai, they are working so hard for our community, and we really, really appreciate their good efforts. And Mike, thank you for putting this good show with SBA staff, Ben Raji, Paul Chen, from Department of Labor, and all the federal agency. Thank you. Let's give them a round of applause. They have worked very, very hard on this. We want to use this opportunity for AA and NHPI entrepreneurs to have access to capital, access to contracting opportunities, and collaborate with the federal and local state government. On behalf of the entire AAPI business community, we just want to thank Biden-Harris administration. They have done so much for us. And this is the third White House Economic Summit put by WIAPI and SBA. The first one was in Philadelphia, the second one was in Chicago, and third one, I'm sure this will be the best one because of all of you. And WIAPI has developed a national strategy for the groundbreaking for AA and NHPI community. So this is like a very, very critical policy issue, as Congresswoman Jayapal mentioned about. Because this, we are talking very important policy, such as data disaggregation, language accessibility. And I know all of you are very care about these important issues. So during the discussion, if you have any concern, if you have any issues, please bring to the officials, and they will be bringing back to the White House for you. And we look forward to some wonderful and insightful session today for all this important discussion. And also, I want to use this opportunity to thank our corporate partners who helped to host lunch today, such as Meta, Walmart, Bank of America, and most importantly is Wells Fargo. Ruby Sapero was with me. Ruby, will you please wave your hands? Where are you? Thank you. We were at the White House at SBA Small Business, SBA's Women Business Summit, hosted by the White House and also SBA. And President Biden was here. He was so pleased to see so many great female small business owners. And I just want to let you know, you can see their effort. You probably don't have time to go to the White House, but they bring the White House to you, to Seattle. So let's thank them. And now I would like to have Mike Fang, my hero, the community leader and regional administrator of SBA, to continue the program. Thank you, Mike.
Thank you, Chi-Ling, and again, thank you for everything that National ACE does on behalf of our community. So before I introduce our next speaker, I also want to acknowledge and something that every speaker has really either directly addressed or indirectly, which is just how important representation is for the community. And earlier today, I saw Mayor Sofia Aragon in the room. So Mayor, good to see you. Thank you. And I also saw School Board Director Vivian Song Merritts. So good to see you. Thank you for being here, Seattle School Board. And I don't know if I missed anyone else, but I want to make sure that we acknowledge our current elected officials there in the room, and we'll be joined by a few others later today as well. So did I miss anybody? I think we're good. Okay, so it's a great honor for me to introduce our keynote speaker today. Nani Coloretti is here. There she is. So Nani is Deputy Director of the Office of Management and Budget for President Biden. She is also the most senior ranked Filipino American in the Biden-Harris administration. And we are very fortunate to have her here today with us. She's a national leader on AA and NHPI issues. She has been a veteran of not only federal government service, both at OMB, but also at HUD and Treasury and elsewhere. But most importantly for me, as a local government guy, Nani has her roots in local government as well in her time in the city of San Francisco, as budget director, as policy director. And I think that local experience is just so crucial because she understands the issues that communities like ours face in the city of Seattle, but really up and down the entire West Coast. And we're really fortunate for her to share a few words with us today. And please take advantage of the time that she has with us here in Seattle, because she, as many have already mentioned, is not only an incredible voice for our community, but is a national leader and can carry our issues and interests back to Washington, D.C. So, Deputy Director Coloretti, thank you.
Thanks so much, Mike. That was such a kind introduction. And I did, when I walked into this city hall, I was like, this city hall is really different from San Francisco City Hall, which is where I spent a good 6 years and 10 years in the city and county of San Francisco. It is so modern and beautiful and just reminds me of Seattle. So I love this city, and it's just such an honor to be here today. So let me just first start out by saying thank you. Thank you to the teams at We and NHPI who are organizing this and who are organizing this across the country. Thank you to Mike and the Small Business Administration, to the Department of Treasury, to OSDBU, to all the members of the federal family who are here. Thank you to National ACE, such an important community partner for us. And thank you to the city of Seattle for organizing this, for letting us be here, for inviting me to be here today and share a few words. So this summit is in direct response to recommendations coming from, as Mike mentioned, the President's Advisory Commission on Asian American, Native Hawaiian, and Pacific Islanders. And I was so happy to walk in and find this card. I don't know if you got it, but I've already scanned and checked the links and everything, and everything you need to know is in here about this commission. It's made up of 25 members, leaders, some of whom are here today, who reflect the rich diversity of the AA and NHPI community throughout the United States. And this commission released the first ever national strategy, and your Congresswoman talked about it a little bit, at the beginning of this year. In the effort to do research about this strategy, one of the issues outlined that the commission and our advisors kind of advised us about was this data point that I want to share with you. Approximately 10% of small businesses in the U.S. are owned by AA and NHPI, AA and NHPIs, but only 2.8% of federal contracting dollars went to the AA and NHPI small businesses in fiscal year 2020. So this convening is part of what was recommended in response to this. It's going to be 8 of these across the country. This is the third one, the third economic summit, and that's why we're here today. So I'm really just honored to be a part of this event and to be featured alongside of all of the community leadership that I see here today. So I come from an agency that you might not have heard of. It's called the Office of Management and Budget, and I'm currently the Deputy Director. This office is the largest part of the White House, so I come to you from the White House. And the President has called this office the Nerve Center of Government. Erica Mortsugu has called it the Nerd Center of Government because we deal with not just the budget, but with the management of government. We deal with procurement policy, which you'll be learning more about procurement today. And we implement a lot of different presidential initiatives out of the Office of Management and Budget. It's the largest part of the executive offices of the President. So I'll tell you a little bit about what we're working on. And as Mike mentioned, I come to you as the highest ranking Filipina American in the Biden-Harris administration. Thank you. I just want to say, I was also the highest ranking Filipina in the Obama administration, so I think we need, no, what I mean by that is we need more Filipinos in the federal government because, let's get some more in there. So I grew up in Hawaii, and I made my way to the mainland, as we call it over there, for college and graduate school, and ultimately to this job. And it's just thanks to the hard work of my parents, my grandparents, and my entire community, and just the support of my community to do the work that I do and do the work that I've been doing my entire career. I also come to you as someone who got to see small business in action. My mom was a home-based childcare provider. And she wanted to open up her own child care center. She had worked for many years in a high-quality child care center. She wanted to open up her own because she had a vision to just create a place that served children on a smaller scale, and she did that really well for about 25 years. So I just want to say that's why I'm really glad to be here today, because I just know personally that growing small businesses, it grows the economy, it supports families, it creates jobs. So I was asked to come here and talk about the work we're undertaking at the federal level and at OMB to advance equity, grow the economy, and reflect the needs of the AA and NHPI communities. So the first natural place for me to start is the federal budget. So the president's budget is much more than a book of agencies and numbers and dollars. The budget provides a statement of values and policy for the Biden-Harris administration. It sets forth a template as to how we can invest in our communities and our families, from housing to healthcare to education and more. The budget contains investments and policies that touch the lives of every American and have key impacts for families, businesses, and communities. So 3 weeks ago, on today, 3 weeks ago, we released the President's fiscal year 2024 budget, which is built on the President's commitment to grow the economy from the bottom up and the middle out rather than the top down. So President Biden's economic plan has already produced historical results for the American people. Under the President's leadership, we've added 12.4 million jobs, more jobs added in 2 years than any president has created in a four-year term. And accordingly, the unemployment rate has fallen to 3.6%, which is near record lows. So in addition to that, we've already taken action to lower prescription drug costs, health insurance premiums, and energy bills, and while driving the healthcare uninsured rate to historic lows. The President's economic plan is also rebuilding American infrastructure, promoting workers, and fueling a manufacturing boom that's strengthening parts of the economy that have long been overlooked and left behind. The FY24 budget that we just released builds on this progress, and it details a roadmap to finish the job. It's built around 4 key values: investing in America, lowering costs for families, protecting Medicare and Social Security, and reducing the deficit. And it does all of this while ensuring that no one making under $400,000 a year pays a penny more in taxes. It will lower costs for working families, including for health insurance, childcare, prescription drugs, housing, college, energy, and much more, while at the same time protecting and strengthening Medicare and Social Security, which are benefits that seniors have paid into, as you know, their entire working lives. And the budget will continue to invest in America and in working families by boosting American manufacturing, providing for national paid leave, and making our communities safer. So we think this is the right way to continue to grow our economy from the bottom up and the middle out. What I additionally want to talk about, though, is to highlight just a number of the specific provisions in our proposed budget that will benefit the AA and NHPI communities and small businesses, including those aimed at narrowing the racial wealth gap and increasing economic opportunity. So some of these highlights include an increase of $110 million to the capacity of the Minority Business Development Agency. That's one of the federal agencies that will be here today and participating in today's sessions, to establish new regional offices, support initiatives to foster economic resilience, and to bolster and expand services provided to minority-owned businesses through the Business Center program and rural business centers. The budget is also proposing to establish a new permanent Assistance to Indigenous Communities program at the Department of Commerce's Economic Development Administration, or EDA sometimes called. This is a new $20 million program that will focus solely on the economic development needs of Indigenous communities, including Native Hawaiians and Pacific Islanders. The budget, I know, woohoo! The budget includes $341 million. It's an increase of $341 million for the Community Development Financial Institutions Fund, sometimes called CDFIs, which provide historically underserved and low-income communities access to credit, to capital, and financial support to grow businesses, increase affordable housing, and reinforce healthy neighborhood development. And I could just say, as my 10 years working in San Francisco, that that is really the truth. CDFIs are a big partner to local government and small businesses and to the community to do all of those things. Yeah. It's hard work, too, really hard work. The budget includes increased funding to strengthen language access services, to promote meaningful access to government programs, services, and benefits for individuals with limited English proficiency. That's a key pillar of the national strategy that I mentioned before. The budget also increases by $62 million, so it's over $252 billion, $252 million for the Department of Justice Civil Rights Division. These resources would support police reform via pattern or practice investigations, the prosecution of hate crimes, enforcement of voting rights, and efforts to provide equitable access to justice. And the budget also increases resources for the Census Bureau within the Department of Commerce. That will be for research and design work on the 2030 census, focused on better reaching and engaging historically undercounted populations, including Asian Americans and Native Hawaiian Pacific Islanders. So we know that investments like these are very important to reach diverse populations and to make our country stronger. But we're not waiting to pass the FY 2024 budget to make progress on these issues. So I want to take a moment to share with you what we're actually doing today to make measurable progress to advance policies that promote equity, reduce barriers to accessing federal services and programs, and build the capacity of AA and NHPI communities. So as you might know, since day one, President Biden has focused on a whole of government approach to advancing equity for underserved communities. We call that the Equity Executive Order, and we've released 2 of those now, and those are also online if you want to see them. And this really tries to address equity through agency policies, programs, and service delivery. So where I'm at, Office of Management and Budget, we co-lead this effort across the White House to hold agencies accountable for results, and we are starting to see some meaningful progress. We've seen more agencies commit to broader language access so that people can interact with the federal government in multiple languages. And just 2 months ago, we've released this national strategy, first ever strategy, to promote safety and equity for Asian American, Native Hawaiians, and Pacific Islander communities. And again, just check it out, it's right here. Super awesome. The strategy is basically the inaugural report from Wianapi to the president, and it includes action plans from 32 federal agencies. It builds on the administration's broader equity agenda, and it details the much needed investments in AA and NHPI communities and priorities. So that's why I keep referring to it, because it talks about what we want to do, and it also talks about what we have been doing, so that you don't have to wait for a budget to pass to know what we're working on already. Also at OMB, we co-lead something called the Equitable Data Working Group. And we helped develop a vision for equitable data to make disaggregated data the norm across government while also protecting privacy. We talked about this a little earlier today. Why should we care about disaggregated data? Particularly for the AA and NHPI community, we know that if we can't serve the community well, if we can't see the community. So we know that the aggregated data of AA and NHPI communities often obscure significant disparities between subgroups. So I'll just give you one example that was pretty compelling to me. Total cancer rates for AA and NHPIs are on average lower than non-Hispanic whites. However, disaggregated data shows that the rate of liver cancer for Laotian women is more than 9 times higher than non-Hispanic white women. So it's only by pulling this data apart, by disaggregating it, that we can uncover the problems that we're trying to solve and work on them more effectively. So finally, I want to highlight the ways in which we're leveraging the federal government's position as the largest consumer of goods and services in the world to build wealth for marginalized communities through federal contracting and procurement opportunities. So in the first year of the administration, the federal government awarded $62 billion in contracts to small disadvantaged businesses, including minority and women-owned businesses. And we're on track to reach our target of increasing the share of federal contracting dollars to these businesses by 50% by the year 2025. And in 2021, and I actually got this data from Mike, a speech that he gave or a blog that you gave, so I'll just quote you, Mike. In 2021, the federal government purchased more than $25 billion of goods and services from companies based in the Pacific Northwest, with $8.5 billion of that going to small businesses. So this is a very important region to help reach our goals of increasing the share of federal procurement to small disadvantaged businesses. So this commitment is sustained, and it is coming directly from the president's commitment to small businesses grown right here in America. And as was mentioned earlier, just earlier this week, the president gathered Small Business Administration's second annual Women's Business Summit. So he gathered a bunch of small business owners into the White House, where he announced a whole bunch of new measures to support women-owned small businesses. So I am just thrilled to be here, to be part of this effort. I'm humbled by the work that you are doing every day, and I'm also just thrilled to work alongside of all the leadership that we talked about in the White House, across agencies and in Congress. And we can't do any of this without the input and engagement of leaders in the community like all of you, which is why today is so important. And I'm glad you're here, and I hope you stay for all of the fantastic sessions that are planned. And I just want to kind of leave you with a quote from President Biden, which he said earlier this week. He said that small businesses are the engine of our economy. They're the glue and the heart and the soul of our communities. So I hope that this economic summit provides you more ways to connect to the federal government and its resources. And I just want to say thanks for inviting me here today.
Great. Thank you, Deputy Director Coloretti. How about one more round of applause for the Deputy Director? I just really appreciate the Deputy Director really emphasizing the work of the President and the different federal agencies. And I think the term to really bring it all together is just the intentionality the administration has around advancing equity, which is a perfect segue into our plenary that Commissioner Batayola will lead for us. And since we're just really rocking it right now, I think we're just going to go right through the transition break and just start the plenary, in part because I got to get us back on schedule, but also I think this is to keep this thing rolling. I think, Teresita, I'm going to turn this over to you, and you can bring on our guests for our opening plenary panel. So if folks can join us up here that are part of our panel, and Teresita, turn it over to you. Great.
Good morning, everyone. All right, all of this prompting and tips. We have roughly 30 minutes for our panel, and I want to say thank you so much to everyone who spoke before us, to Senator Murray, to Congresswoman Jayapal for their greetings, and also for our speakers who set us up very nicely for this panel. This panel is about advancing equity through the federal government, and we will be talking about the importance of investing in Asian American, Native Hawaiian, Pacific Islander communities and the strategies that are applied by the respective organizations that are here with me today. But before I introduce myself and the panel, I really want to do some shout outs to the leadership of the White House Initiative, the White House itself, and the President's Advisory Commission on Asian Americans, Native Hawaiians, and Pacific Islanders. So you've heard Erika Moritsugu's name several times. In case you did not know, she's the Deputy Assistant and a Senior Advisor to the President, so she actually sees him on a regular basis, and same thing with the Vice President. Our co-chairs for the Presidential Commission itself on AA and NHPI are Health and Human Services Secretary Javier Becerra and U.S. Trade Representative Ambassador Catherine Tai. And you already heard that a couple of commissioners are here with me today, Grace Huang and AJ Pretoria was sitting in front earlier. My name is Teresita Batayola, and I'm one of 25 commissioners who are charged with uplifting the Asian American, Native Hawaiian, Pacific Islander communities by developing recommendations on policies, programs, and funding that we are preparing on a rolling basis. So instead of waiting a couple of years for us to produce a big book of recommendations, as recommendations are ready, we present them to the President, and the President and his cabinet members go ahead, review them, and greenlight them. And these economic summits are one of the early results of those recommendations. Part of what we are doing also is making sure that our communities are part of the engagement and are very active in considering and proposing, submitting ideas for those recommendations. And again, that is one of the purposes for today. Aside from my role on the commission, I'm also a trustee for Seattle Colleges, and am recently retired from International Community Health Services, which is a federally qualified health center, and which is how I know one of our speakers. She was a very active, and I'm sure she still is, a very active partner to community health centers. And so I will start by introducing Sharon Turner. And Sharon is the Regional Director of Health and Human Services. HHS is cabinet-level executive branch department of the U.S. federal government with the goal of protecting the health of Americans and providing essential human services. Its motto is improving the health, safety, and well-being of America. She is double and maybe multiple-hatted also, because she's the primary representative for the Secretary of HHS for Washington, Oregon, Idaho, and Alaska, and she also serves as the head of the Regional Office of Intergovernmental and External Affairs. Next, I will go to Michael Look on my extreme right. Michael is the Deputy Regional Administrator of Housing and Urban Development. HUD is the federal agency responsible for national policy and programs that address America's housing needs, that improve and develop the nation's communities and enforce fair housing laws. He is the former director of oops, I think that is the wrong note. Sorry. So welcome, Michael. Next to me is Casey Sixkiller, the Regional Administrator of the Environmental Protection Agency. Mission of EPA is to protect human health and the environment. He is an enrolled citizen of the Cherokee Nation and a former deputy mayor here in the city of Seattle. Then on my left is Frank Boykin, Director of the U.S. Minority Business Development Agency, MBDA, which is part of the U.S. Department of Commerce, and it's dedicated to advancing the establishment and growth of minority-owned firms. He's the former Director of Manufacturing Industrial Council at Tacoma-Pierce County Chamber of Commerce. And at my extreme left is Philip Kim, Senior Advisor, Office of Public Engagement, the White House. The Office of Public Engagement supports the President's goal of building a government that is inclusive, transparent, accountable, and responsible to its citizens. So please welcome our panel, and we will start the discussion pretty quickly. This past January, WIAMPI, in partnership with the Biden-Harris administration, released the first ever national strategy to advance equity, justice, and opportunity for AA and NHPIs. So addressing this question to Sharon, Casey, and Michael, what are some ways your agency is advancing equity for AA and NHPI communities? So Sharon?
Good morning, everyone, and thank you, Commissioner Teresita. I'm happy to be here, and as in my introduction, I'm Sharon Turner, and I'm with HHS Regional Director, as well as with HHS Health Resources and Services Administration. One of the most, I would say, exciting news right now is that here recently, the HHS Office of the Intergovernmental and External Affairs just secured the location of the White House Initiative on Asian Americans, Native Hawaiians, and Pacific Islanders office within HHS IEA. So we're really excited that Crystal, as well as Monica and other team members, are part of HHS IEA. And I also want to announce that Region 10 has historically, as we've heard earlier from our previous speakers, Region 10 being the states of Washington, Alaska, Idaho, and Oregon, we are historically committed to providing and sustaining and establishing meaningful relationships with our Asian Americans, Hawaiian natives, and Pacific Islanders. With that being said, as we have talked about and identified the barcode for the report, there are a few areas that I do want to highlight that is currently happening within HHS. The Food and Drug Administration developed a culturally and linguistically tailored COVID-19 messages in several languages during addressing the COVID-19 pandemic. And I also want to note that HRSA, Health Resources and Services Administration, also through the Pacific Basin Telehealth Resource Center, has a translation toolkit. And then recently, CMS implemented a new cultural competency training for marketplace agents and brokers participating in the marketplace for the Plan 2023. These highlights are important for cultural and linguistic competency when addressing the marketplace consumers and with eligibility, enrollment, and post-enrollment issues. And I also want to note that that training actually took place here in Region 10 in Alaska with one of our federally facilitated health insurance marketplace.
Well, thanks, Teresita. Thanks to Mike Bong for pulling the event together today and for inviting me to participate on behalf of the Environmental Protection Agency. As Sharon mentioned, our region includes the state of Washington, but also states of Oregon, Alaska, Idaho, and 271 tribal nations. So we have half of the nation's tribes in our area, and I'm very proud to be the first Native person to ever hold this job in the history of the EPA. So it's exciting to be here. Thank you very much. It's wonderful to be back in this room and see some familiar faces here in the front row and throughout the room, and of course to join Mike and others who I had the pleasure of working with as deputy mayor a couple of years ago. But, you know, I am really excited to be part of the Biden and Harris administration. I was appointed by President Biden last May, and one of the things that was made very clear to me through that process and by my boss, the administrator of the EPA on our first day, was that we are going to take a much different approach than the previous administration, and we're going to focus our efforts and center our efforts on equity and environmental justice. The EPA is kind of a unique agency in the sense that, you know, most of the nation's environmental programs, our federal, you know, Clean Air Act, Clean Water Act, and others, are actually administered by the states. We delegate that authority to the states, and the EPA then oversees the state's execution of those laws. Through the years, states have often taken maybe a different approach than EPA always agrees with. And so we have been given direction to begin really reviewing the ways in which states are addressing environmental justice, and in particular communities that have been overburdened by pollution and underserved by investments in infrastructure and other challenges throughout the past several decades. It manifests itself in several ways within the agency. One is we changed our strategic plan. And I think for any of the business owners in this room, right, when you update your business plan, it really is a reflection of how you operate as a business. And so this is a big deal for us. We have always said since the early 80s that EPA's strategic plan framework is follow the science, follow the law, be transparent, and now under my new boss, advance justice and equity. So what that means in our day-to-day work, right, is that every decision we make, every resource that we are allocating, every regulation that we are developing or updating is to go through an equity process, not just a lens, but for us to really be centering the voices of the communities that we are charged with protecting. At the end of the day, the EPA really is a public health agency. It is our job to ensure that every community has access to clean water, has clean air, and all of the other opportunities to address legacy and historic pollution in their communities. So we also are at a very historic moment in our agency's history. Between the American Rescue Plan, the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law, and the Inflation Reduction Act, we are making generational investments in our nation's infrastructure. Over $100 billion since President Biden took office, and through the end of next year will be invested just through the Environmental Protection Agency's programs. And 40% of that, at least 40% of that, through our Justice 40 commitment, will be invested in communities of color and other communities that have been left behind for far too long. The other way in which we're doing that is the Inflation Reduction Act changed our annual environmental justice program. When I started the agency last May, it was $3 million a year. Our EJ program is now $3 billion with a B. So we are now creating opportunities. We have multiple grant opportunities open right now, and then we'll continue to open throughout the course of this year that finally give communities an opportunity and the funding to not just be at the table, but to help drive the solutions to address legacy pollution and other concerns in your communities. This has never been done before. And I'm really excited that here in Region 10, we have a number of environmental justice communities and leaders and advocates who are really taking this opportunity and running with it. And I'm happy to talk more about that throughout the day or provide resources for folks to learn more. Lastly is how we're hiring. It is as Mike said, representation matters. And making sure that our workforce reflects the communities that we serve is a top priority, not just for the Biden-Harris administration, but for us here in Region 10 with our offices in Seattle. And I'm really proud of the fact that half of my senior leadership team are members of the AA and NHPI community. I think I'm the only regional office that has that type of representation, certainly in the EPA, and I would probably argue across the federal government. And I think that does reflect the fact of the communities that we serve here. So I'm excited about the opportunity to be here and talk about our work, and looking forward to the rest of our panel.
Well, great. Thank you. Michael?
Thank you. Good morning. Michael Look, Deputy Regional Administrator, U.S. Housing and Urban Development. So what does housing have to do with economic success? Well, without housing, I would argue it's hard to have economic success, because if you're worried about where you're going to sleep at night, you can't be thinking about strategic plans for your small business or growing your small business, et cetera. And then when you do achieve economic success, we hope that you would take that success and live the life that you want and live where you want without fear of discrimination. So housing comes before economic success, and hopefully housing comes after economic success. In terms of our efforts to ensure that you do have equitable access to housing, HUD has a number of initiatives underway. The first is called PAVE. It's Property Assessment and Valuation Equity. You've heard stories about appraisers who, when they go to homes that are owned by minority communities. The appraisal of the homes are a few $1,000s or a few tens of $1,000s less than if the client was a majority Caucasian person. The PAVE task force that HUD is a part of seeks to hold the industry accountable to equity and to valuing homes in a fair and honest way. We are hoping to educate consumers to watch out for discriminatory valuations. And if they do see that their white friends and neighbors are getting their homes valued more than their home, then they should take action. And we are empowering consumers to take action. We've made it clear that appraisers do fall under the requirements of the Federal Fair Housing Act, which means that they must appraise homes in a fair and equitable way, regardless of the ethnicity of the client. Another thing we're doing to ensure equitable access to housing is we have a proposal that's open for comment right now. It's called the Affirmatively Furthering Fair Housing Rule. And that seeks to enforce, again, provisions of the Fair Housing Act of 1968. It addresses historic patterns of discrimination in housing by not only forcing the people who use our dollars, not only forcing them to prohibit discrimination, but to affirmatively further fair housing, to not just say, no, you can't do it, but to remedy the past 100 years of discriminatory housing patterns in the country by looking at where ethnic minorities live and making sure that there's no concentration and that there's no forced concentration of racial segregation in their jurisdictions. We also have what's called the Section 3 program. Well, it's not a program, it's a requirement. Anybody who uses our dollars for construction, whether it be affordable housing or a community facility or anything of that nature, they must set targets for using businesses that are either owned by low and minority income persons or that are owned by residents of public housing or who employ a majority of their workforce as low and moderate income persons. So there are opportunities for small businesses in federal contracting, and if the project is funded by HUD, you should check it out. You should ask the contractor, the general contractor, about are they meeting their Section 3 goals. And of course, we are also taking a look at all of our literature. As was mentioned earlier today, the federal government as a whole is taking a look at language access. We are taking a look at language access for all of our documents, all of our consumer guides, our housing guides for persons of limited English-speaking abilities. So we are looking at that. And finally, one thing that is sort of not directly related, but I think is vitally important, whenever we do fund construction projects as the federal government, as HUD, we do require the payment of fair and prevailing wages to our workers. And that's important because the construction industry is heavily minority dominated. So we have inspectors who go out, check the payrolls to make sure that all the workers on federal construction projects funded by HUD are paid a fair and prevailing wage so that they aren't taken advantage of economically, they aren't being forced to rebate part of their wages back to the contractor, and that they are receiving benefits that they deserve. So those are just a few of the things that HUD is doing to advance equity.
Thank you, Michael. So we've just heard an array of approaches and opportunities through 3 different agencies, and the road to economic equity and success definitely means access to funding and contracting opportunities, healthy housing, healthy environment, and resources for a healthy life. But now, Philip, I'm going to talk to you directly. If you can share with us what the Biden-Harris administration has achieved for our AA and NHPI communities through very important landmark bills like the American Rescue Plan and the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law.
Yeah, oh, there we go. Thank you. First, I want to say good morning, everybody. It is a true honor to be here in Seattle. This is my first economic summit, and I couldn't choose a better place to start, and so thank you for the opportunity. I also want to say thank you to all the panelists here. It's humbling to be here with all these esteemed and accomplished leaders, and I'm just grateful to be sharing the space this morning. Really quickly, my introduction. Professionally, I serve in the Office of Public Engagement. I recently joined the team at the White House. Previously, I also was a part of the work at AmeriCorps. I was the White House liaison there and the Deputy Director of the White House Liaison's Office at the Department of Education. My personal background and how I come to this space to you today as well is that I'm a son of immigrants, working class parents who fix cars for a living and own a small business as well, and that's the perspective that I want to bring in my personal capacity as well. Just a quick overview of what OPE does. We view ourselves as the front door to the White House, and so this is an amazing opportunity to continue to build connective tissue with so many folks outside of DC, where all the real work is happening as well, and want to be able to continue to amplify the issues that folks care about and make sure that we're directing people to the right teams that are continuing to advance the work and things that we're advocating for. So that is a part of how we view ourselves in the role, and would love to continue the conversation throughout the day. In terms of your question, so we'll start with ARP. That takes us back a couple of years ago. We're in the middle of the pandemic. There were a lot of businesses being lost, a lot of unemployment in the community. And just to go quickly over top lines, the ARP helped to reduce unemployment by over 50%, and many of the jobs that were lost were regained, which is, thanks to President Biden and his vision to act quickly. In terms of the resources that were provided to also support communities that are being impacted by hate-filled violence and discrimination. The ARP also was able to fund communities to then be able to report these issues, and led to the signing of the COVID-19 anti-hate crime bill, which then has led us to an opportunity to work with DOJ and implement more enforcement opportunities to make sure that we're protecting our own and have a chance to continue to study this issue, invest in it, and make sure that our community is being uplifted and not torn apart. Looking ahead, we are at a moment where we have this year and we have 2024 in this term. The White House initiative of AA and NHPI produced the National Strategy for Equity and secured, as Nanny mentioned earlier, commitments and strategies from 32 federal agencies to tackle the issue of data disaggregation, investing in language access, investing in mental health resources. And all of these are important, obviously, on their own, but I think speaks to the umbrella of equity lens that we use as the Biden-Harris administration to take care of the full spectrum of the AA and NHPI community, because obviously we're not a monolith, and every single community within our umbrella deserves that special attention. So I want to uplift the intentionality with which our leaders at WIANAPI, our leaders in the Chief of Staff Office, NHPI, and here within OP work to make sure that all of these different equities are being considered. Looking at, and to kind of close this out really quickly, I know we're going to touch on this a little bit more in future breakouts, but looking ahead, we want to make sure that we apply that same lens when it comes to access to capital, when it comes to increased investments in support of our communities, and then finally, of course, when it comes to representation, I want to also uplift how this administration has appointed over 14 to 50% of its administration to be AA and NHPIs, and folks with senior leadership positions, folks with decision-making abilities, and in sum, it's humbling to be a part of a team where we can all speak to the different needs of our community and advocate within our own respective agencies, within our own teams, and work in partnership with you all to continue to advance the work and support and uplift our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Philip. In the interest of time, no applause until the very end, then standing applause. So in the interest of time, I will address this one question to Frank. Recognizing that the AA NHPI community itself is incredibly diverse with various unique needs, Given the new historic grant opportunities made available through the Department of Commerce Capital Readiness Program grant competition, how can our communities successfully access those funds?
Thank you so much. Good morning, everyone. It is a pleasure to be here. I'd always like to share, let's keep the main thing the main thing. And the main thing is this economic summit, 3 of 8 anticipated, and you being here. Centering that is the most important thing. And let me be even more clear. What we cannot do alone, we can do together. What we cannot do alone, we can do together. The expectation of there being unprecedented opportunity for economic development coming from the White House, ultimately to impact communities like ours, should be good news. Most importantly, it should shift your thinking. It should have you thinking about the priorities that you had before. Maybe I can lean differently into this moment. If we don't, my oh my, are we missing an opportunity? As the director of the Minority Business Development Agency, which to make sure that it is local in your understanding and local in your engagement, let me be clear. This is a business center at a minimum that spans the state. So if you're in the state and you have an interest in economic development, interest in entrepreneurship, interest in the challenges that say that if you want to lean into differently this moment, MBDA wants to make it a point to come alongside you and make the difference. The question has been around Minority Business Development Agency's Capital Readiness Program, a $93.5 million opportunity that's moved throughout the country, that has been positioned to expect that there is emulation of entities that can act as accelerators, that can act as incubators to push money into businesses that otherwise would have been left out, the least of, and underrepresented. MBDA is making it a point here locally to create those different agencies in a connected way, such that the silos and the underrepresentation stops. But it only stops, candidly, if we shift our thinking, and shifting our thinking in the now to make a difference in how we work together, how we move together, and what those outcomes are ultimately. So let me take a step back and remind you about this agency. It's a legacy agency. That just simply means we've been around too long. To some. To others, it means we haven't been around long enough. A 1969 campaign promise, then by President Richard Nixon, in his first 100 days, gave birth to the Office of Minority Business Enterprises. And as we fast forward to that evolution, today, that's the Minority Business Development Agency. The good news about that is it's now a permanent agency, made permanent by the Biden-Harris administration. If you don't think that's good news, I want you to know it is. Because what comes along with the permanence is impact that we've never had before. There is first, a leadership infrastructure that is more impactful, 3-tiered. Secretary, Deputy Secretary, and Undersecretary Don Cravens, who leads our impact as Minority Business Development Agency and the business centers in which we run. We have an extraordinary opportunity with these efforts to meet people where they are, a second ingredient of what happened as a result of this MBE Act. That means we're creating rural centers, specialized centers, to be closer to the resources and those that need them to move businesses forward. That's important. And lastly, what comes along with that is a big stick. There's an expectation that we'll do things differently that started with infrastructure change, that was followed up with well-resourced opportunities, that we best move those resources into community and make the impact that we'd like to see. I think that we're doing that. I think there is opportunity for us to underscore how we can do it better, different, and special. But that, again, makes me bring you back into the equation so that it is not minimized. What we cannot do alone, we can do together.
Thank you, Frank.
Thank you.
So, the 2 words to remember, accelerators and incubators. Please make sure you talk to Frank, because those 2 entities sounds like where the monies will flow from. So we now have to condense our last questions, and I will ask each of the panelists to give 3 words in response to this question, and then you can have a 1 sentence after 3 words to tell us how you can be reached. So, if there's one message for attendees to take away so that government partners and community leaders can ensure success in advancing equity among our communities, what are your 3 words? And then your sentence will be, how can the community contact you? So we will go ahead and start with Michael, then have Casey, Sharon, Frank, and Philip. Go for it, Michael.
All right, what a challenge. 3 words: attend, speak, and aware. Attend forums, attend webinars, attend listening sessions.
Okay, that's more than 3 words.
I'm sorry, okay. Okay, how do you reach me? How do you reach me? The HUD office locally is here in Seattle. You can reach us at 206-220-5101. Or you can send an email to wa_webmanager@hud.gov. If you get lost in all that, just check out HUD's homepage and look for state information, and then look for Washington.
And Michael's name is spelled very easily. Michael Look, L-O-O-K. Casey.
You drive change. If you go to our website, epa.gov, you will find all kinds of information about the environmental justice grants that I mentioned. You'll find information about our commitment to working with small businesses and how the EPA continues to lead among federal agencies its contracting opportunities for small businesses. And lastly, please pay attention to what we are doing. We are about to announce over $30 billion in grant and contracting opportunities to help green our economy, from solar and all other kinds of impacts across in communities from which you all come, and communities maybe where your businesses serve. Thank you. Hey, those were a lot of semicolons, okay?
Spelling of his name. Sharon.
I'm not going to follow the instructions either.
You don't know Teresita well enough.
No, yes.
Unfortunately, federal government employees are notorious at violations. Sharon.
No, we're just very wordy, that's all.
So I would say continue to establish partnerships and forums and gatherings like this. We have an upcoming event that's across 3 regions, 8, 9, and 10, that we will be inviting everyone to, where we can continue to have that cross-collaboration. So I didn't follow instructions. Get in touch with me, sturner@hrsa.gov.
Thank you for giving your personal contact. Frank.
Initiative is good.
How do they reach you?
I would like to say more, but I do not want to be called out.
You are saying more. How do they contact you?
You can contact me at FBOYKIN. That's my first initial of my first name and my last name, FBOYKIN. And at cityoftacoma.org. fboykin at cityoftacoma.org.
Thank you, Frank.
You bet.
Philip.
Keep on building. I think when we look at this group 10 years ago, I wonder what it would look like. But the fact that we can come here and convene today like this gives me a lot of inspiration and hope. We're going to also be hosting a similar kind of forum in DC, May 3rd. We'd love to see you there. If you're interested, you can sign up through Reanapi.
Great. I just want to mention that the President's Advisory Commission on Asian Americans, Native Hawaiians, and Pacific Islanders have developed and are continuing to develop recommendations in the areas of belonging, inclusion, anti-Asian hate and anti-discrimination, economic equity, which is where this economic summit recommendation came from, health equity, language access, data disaggregation, and immigration and citizenship status. So please continue to look at our website and give us input and feedback on recommendations that we're making. As I mentioned earlier, we're doing it on a rolling basis so that the President and Vice President can benefit from those recommendations in as real time as possible. Thank you so much to my panelists, and thank you for what could be a more engaging discussion if we had more time, and I hope you take advantage of them as they are available. I think some of them are staying through the rest of the day. And now, I want your standing applause.
Great. Thank you, Teresita. Thank you to our panel. Really appreciate your time today. I stole a break from everyone, so you're getting it back right now, and we will reconvene in about 5 minutes. The mayor will join us for an armchair conversation. So, great. Take a quick break. Thanks.
If I could have Mike and the commissioners, Chiling, if you're in the room, we're going to do a quick group photo right now. Wherever you think is best. If Chiling and any of the commissioners are in the room, please come stand at the front for a really quick group photo. And Nani, if you're in the room. No, Audrey should be here. They're going to do an interview, so I might try to flag him, but if not, you guys Ajay, photo. Chiling, photo. Group photo, really quick. Is Nani still out here? Is Nani still out here? Who? Nani. It's fine. That's okay. They can take a photo. Okay, group photo. I'll take it for you. No, it's okay. You guys are the board. Yes. You get in, Sharon? Okay. All right. Phil, you're in.
All right.
All right, everybody, if everyone could also begin to take their seats, we're going to have the armchair discussion with the mayor very soon. Huh? Yeah, okay. Hi, everybody. If you could please take your seats, the mayor will be joining us momentarily. Yes. All right, everybody, please take your seats. All right, everybody, we have the mayor joining us. If everyone could please take your seats, we're going to start very soon. Thank you. All right, everybody. I'm so sorry, folks. I'm going to ask you all to take your seat very quickly. There's plenty of networking time. All right, everybody. All right. All right, everybody.
No, it's okay. So he's a little stuck because he's like.
Oh, he is? Oh, okay.
He's like right there though.
Okay, yeah, that's fine. I know his staffer is there, so she's getting him. Okay.
I will.
Yes. I'm sorry, folks. If everyone could please take their seats. The mayor is going to be joining us very soon. If everyone can please take their seats. That would be lovely. Thank you. Thank you. Sorry. Yeah, no, all good. All right, friends. The mayor is joining us very soon. Thank you, Phil. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Nope, this is good because we need them for afterwards, but they're just going to sit here. All right, everybody. Please take your seats. The mayor is ready to sit. Yeah. Where's Mike? Oh, I'm looking for Mike. He needs to reel him in.
Let me guys send an email, okay?
Thank you. Yeah, that's the mayor's handler too. So, all right, everybody. Where is Mike? Hey, Mike Fong, are you in the room? Mike Fong. All right. Yeah, I know. Sorry. The mayor is here, but so we want to get situated. Michael Fong. Go ahead and take a seat. And so, hi, Chair. Hey, Mike. Pardon. I'm trying to get everybody seated. All right, everybody. Yes. Inside. I'm so sorry. This is Mike, so they can go out the next Okay. All right, everybody. You have your remarks right here, top of the script. So you're at the end, the mayor is in the middle, and the chair's at on the other side. And then hard stop at 11. Okay, everybody. Chair is right next to the yep. All right. Yes, or we can try to, the mayor has a hard stop, but we'll try our best to, but if you'd like, you can also say hi really quickly, but would you like me to sit? You're going to sit right here? Okay. There's a water bottle here for you, and it'll be all right. Go ahead and get in the photo, Mike, if you want to do a quick photo. All right. Sharon, you want to go ahead and get into? All right, we have one more person. All right. Okay. All right. We have to get started. I'm so sorry, all. The mayor has a hard stop, so we have to get him situated. All right. Thank you all so much. We have to get started, everybody. Thank you. Thanks, Sharon. Okay. Mayor, for being here. Thank you for hosting us in your beautiful city. Your city there, and then to use your mic, you just click it. It goes on green, and then to mute it, click it again. Yeah. I know. You guys have a hard stop at 11, right? Yeah. So 15 minutes. It'll be quick. Yeah. Okay. Awesome.
I'll try to make sure it's not kept too serious.
Beautiful.
I'm not worried about that.
Right. You know how to use this, right?
Yeah.
Green.
Yeah. Green.
Yeah. And then, but yeah, microphone is right here. Green, it's live, Mayor, and then it's mute when it's ready. So you just thank you. Water bottle for you, and you're all good. Go ahead and get started.
Okay.
All right.
Okay. Welcome back, everybody. I know we're trying to stay on schedule. Mayor Harrell has a hard stop, so we'll go ahead and just get the show on the road here. So thanks for coming back into the main room. And we're very honored today to have Mayor Harrell join us, the 57th mayor for the city of Seattle. A round of applause for Mayor Harrell. Great. And we have a great conversation here. Just a real casual armchair conversation with the mayor and with Shara Amlog, small business owner. And Shara, say hello. She is the owner of Hood Famous Cafe and Bar. And because we're short on time, rather than spend the most of this just doing introductions, neither really need any introductions. So we'll just launch right into our conversation, and then we'll hopefully, if time permitting, maybe we can take a question or two. But first, I just want to start off. We'll start with the mayor for just a quick sec, and maybe again, thank you for being here, Mayor. We have the opportunity with a significant number of folks from our AAPI community with us. Just thought maybe if you had any opening remarks or thoughts about our convening and to share with folks before we get going.
Well, thank you, Mike. I'll stand up just a little bit for those in the back. I'm not going to keep standing up, by the way, just every now and then. So the reason I'm excited to be here, because, you know, Seattle has gotten very large, of course, and some of you are not just in Seattle, you're from the region. But every now and then, it gets small. And by that I mean, we build community. And I think one of the things that this particular community, in the API community, got really excited about my candidacy and my administration is because you see my values and your culture and my cultural values and awareness. You see a commonality that talks about what we're going to talk about today. The beauty and the importance of small businesses, the beauty of cultural commonality, that many of you have come from distant lands and you didn't come here to say, I want to fail. You came here to say, I want an opportunity. And under Mike's leadership and the SBA's leadership and under the Biden administration, we are creating new opportunities, new lifeblood, new energy. You know, I bounce sometimes when I talk because I have energy. And so I'm excited to have this discussion, and Shara sort of represents the best of the best when she's, you know, she has one foot in city government, but the other foot in what you are doing, building community, building small businesses. So I just wanted to open with that. And I'm not going to start calling out names because I see so many family-like members out there, and you know who you are. But thank you for building community, and this is your city hall. This is where we're going to make this happen for you. So thank you for being here.
Great. Thank you, Mayor, and thank you for hosting us today at City Hall. Shara, that's a great segue to you, and we'd love to hear a little bit about your story and your journey in terms of starting your small business. So could you give us some insight?
Welcome. Thank you, and thank you for having me, and it's an honor to be speaking with you, Mayor Harrell, and everyone in this room, because I, 10 years ago, was not expecting to be a business owner. I fell into it. My husband and I started a pop-up up on Beacon Hill 10 years ago in 2013, because the power of pop-ups is real. And then, you know, we wanted to celebrate our 10-year anniversary, and we went to Kuya Ernie Rios, the owner of Inay's, the longest-running Filipino restaurant at the time, when Beacon Hill didn't look like Beacon Hill, and he opened his restaurant to us. And we did a one-time pop-up, and I think there was just such a craving and a desire to have more spaces, Filipino-American spaces at the time. The cuisine wasn't as robust in the media as it is now. And I think people were craving for that community space. And so what started off as a pop-up 10 years ago turned into a business today. And we have 2 locations. We have our Ballard location, which we do our wholesale. We're proudly in Wajimaya. They are our first wholesale clients. And then we have a cafe and bar in the International District that's been open for 4 years now.
So Shara, I got to ask you about this famous cheesecake that people keep telling me about. Tell us a little bit about that, the pies, but also from that, also a little bit about maybe some of the challenges you might have faced getting going, and maybe some of the things that you're still dealing with. And
yeah, absolutely. I'm really proud to still be in business 10 years, but it's grueling. You know, I think anybody that has owned a business, a small business, has known somebody. It's been a challenging last few years, and in the beginning, I would say being able to understand the landscape, I didn't know at the time. We bootstrapped a lot of it in the beginning. I wasn't familiar with CDFIs, and so in starting a business, I had no idea. We were lucky enough to be approached by Wajimaya to get a wholesale account, so we started as a wholesale business. And so our business started because we were given an opportunity. And I would say all across my journey, it's people opening doors and being able to access, and that's why being able to find access points and folks being able to understand what is available to them is so important, because folks will walk through the door as long as they know that it's there. And so I would say capital was really challenging in the beginning. You know, when I was first introduced to CDFIs, I had no idea what that process was, and it was really, looking back, I I didn't know how risky I was. And it really, because I had no experience, you know, we were starting off as a pop-up, and it was really advocates in the CDFIs, so Business Impact Northwest, you know, Joe Tucker, Antoinette, my lender at Craft 3, when we got our second SBA loan, they vouched for me. Not just my business, but they vouched for me. And so I would, you know, I learned a lot about that process, and I would say that access to capital was one of the most challenging parts in the beginning, but once I understood it, I started telling my friends that, hey, you know, don't be afraid of loans, don't be afraid, like, take the risk on yourself, because I think our communities are one of the most innovative communities, and when you're like, I'm an immigrant, when you think about all the different things that a small business needs to have, the risk, the grit, the resourcefulness, immigrants, refugees, our communities have all of that, and that transfers into business as well. And so I started thinking that way and just started believing a lot more in my ability to, you know, to run the business and take out more capital.
Thanks, Sharon. I swear this wasn't intended to be a walking advertisement for SBA, but I would like to point out access to capital is a very core program element for us, so, and our folks are right out the door. So Mayor, part of what Sharon described is what I know you and I have seen as we've toured small business owners and met with folks all across the city and elsewhere in the region, is that passion for the work, the passion for innovation and creativity. I know you have been committed to the growth and economic vitality of the city. Based on a little bit of the work that your administration is doing around small businesses, maybe you can share with us a little bit of how your team and your work ties back into what Sharon's talking about in terms of small business growth and expansion.
Sure, I'd love to, Mike. And it's sort of funny, excuse me, it's sort of funny when Sharon was talking, I was just looking around the room, and my God, we have the who's who in the API community here, man. If you're thinking about running for office, this is the place to be right now to shake some hands. And I do want to recognize I have many elected officials here from the API community, former and current, so I just want to give them a shout out, and I'm always grateful to see you in your continued work. So to answer the question directly, this is our time for small business development. And the reason I say that is we know that what COVID did, it did change buying patterns, that, you know, people are buying through e-commerce differently, and it's probably not going to go back. You know, a bottle of water, for example, people are even buying this stuff e-commerce, when how hard is it just go to the store and get one of these things, right? So the buying habits, if you look at the data, has changed. But what the small business does, number one, it allows us to hire from communities, to recycle our dollars. It allows us to, again, talk to one another in a world where we're looking at little screens, little boxes, and virtually, that the building of community is going to be important. So what we have to do, what I have to do as a mayor, is I have to, number one, as Sharon said, I have to make access to capital critical. I have to look at commercial affordability critical. At lunchtime today, I'm going to give a speech on our housing levy, because it's going to be so important for me to be able to allow you to live in one of the most expensive cities in the country to live in. We have to be intentional about keeping you in the city. The other part, yeah, give me some of those snaps. The young people do have snaps, man. Shoot, I only get claps. I like those snaps. So that came out after I was in office. I like that snap action. Now here's what's critical, and it's some work we're doing through our Office of Economic Development. Is we looked at what are some of the other biggest challenges of a small business. Now, many of you know my family owns small businesses in Chinatown International District. On both sides, my mother and father, they own small businesses. And they continue, my family continues to own small businesses. So we say one of the biggest challenges that I see, and as a lawyer, I used to counsel lots of, hundreds of small businesses, that number one, the relationship capital you have, the people you know often look like you. They come from your community, come from your culture. And that might only be 4 or 5, 6% of the demographic of 100% demographic you're trying to hit. So how do I help you develop relationships in Ballard, let's say, for example, or in Bellevue, dare I say. I know there's some Bellevue people here, so that's the B word. But how do I get people around here to visit your business because you have a unique product? And often we have to look at that as something that's handicapping us. And through the technical assistance that the SBA gives, coupled with our OED work, we look at that. Strategic planning. And you walk into a small business and talk about how much time are you looking at strategic planning? How much time are you doing that? They say, what? Man, I'm trying to pay the light bills, brother. Right? And so, and you remember that some of the largest businesses in this country, many of whom are located here, started as small businesses. And what they were able to do is carve out enough time and resources for that technical strategic planning assistance, which, quite frankly, you just don't have time to do. The other piece of that is social media, right? I mean, I'm dating myself a little bit here because I finally arrived where I got people do my social media for us. But you asked me to tweet. Tweet. But we have to be able to use those tools. And when you're working your product or your service, whatever your small business is, you don't have time to spend on social media. You're just hoping you don't get a bad Yelp review or something, right? So these are important tools through technical assistance that you just don't have time to have. So through our Offices of Economic Development, again, partnering with the assistance that the SBA gives us, we want to do a granular look at your business to see how we can help, because we know how hard it is to survive, dealing with access to capital, commercial space, et cetera. So this is the sort of the ecosystem of small business work we want to do for you. And I'm pretty excited about it. And through the Restore program, through some of the ARPA federal dollars, right now, every time I tell you who's my enemy out there, and it's not the people that just call me bad names, so that's okay. That's what I sign up for. It's the plywood and these small businesses down here. Everywhere I see some plywood, I see an opportunity for you. So what we're going to announce very quickly here under my Downtown Activation Plan, DAP, we're going to make some announcements here next month as the opportunities for you, coupled with help from the SBA, on how I can fill up all these, because I want to activate downtown. So that's why I say this is our time, this is our opportunity.
Great. Thanks, Mayor. And, you know, the mayor touching on really the full complement of resources and leveraging local government, federal government, public and private sector resources for economic growth is exactly what we want to start looking in terms of forward thinking as far as our economy and job growth and job creation. So Shara, I wanted to turn back to you. You've given us a little bit of perspective on sort of the start of your business and sort of some of the challenges you're facing, a little bit of the what's on the horizon, what's next for your business, and what you see are some opportunities. And I know for many of the business owners and resource partners out here, we're still trying to help move small businesses from the pandemic into adapting to a new world order, so to speak, but also resiliency going forward. And the work that the mayor's doing and the rest of us, I think, could benefit from some insight and perspective from you on the ground. So any thoughts?
Yeah, I'd have to say that, you know, businesses are still trying to recover. And, you know, I think as I'm extremely grateful for the trajectory of my business, but it isn't, we also felt the impacts of it, and my story, and I know a lot of other business owners share the sentiment. When COVID hit, our revenue went down 50%. And we spent our 1 year in, you know, closed dining rooms. And so, and although we are seeing more foot traffic, definitely in the summers, the cruise ships have been helping. We're right there on 5th, right across from the light rail station. And so we're able to kind of track and see the foot traffic. And we are seeing an upward trend, but we're not at the 2019 levels yet. And so I do want to make sure that folks still understand that businesses are definitely still struggling. You can walk into a business or a restaurant and see it full, and that's great, but it doesn't mean that they're thriving. And so I just want folks to still understand that, you know, to continue to still support and obviously, you know, celebrate that we're getting there, but folks are still trying to dig themselves out of a hole. And so, you know, what I am looking for in our horizon is to continue to really you know, continue to be resilient, get us back to those 2019 numbers, and then really what I found in COVID that people, maybe was the silver lining, is people started to think really creatively about their business and do things within their business model that they might not have done without the pandemic. And so for us, we now have what we call a little palenque, a little gift shop, because when our dining rooms closed, we really missed our community coming in, and so we brought in local artists and curated a little marketplace. And so that's still there now. That wasn't a part of our original business model. And so, you know, we're hoping to continue to expand wholesale, but it's slow. And I just want, you know, in a room full of folks that are really, whose job it is to help and revive the economy, I just, as a business owner, but also seeing firsthand what's going on and just the intentional efforts that the city of Seattle is trying to do for businesses, just a good reminder that we're not there yet. And why it's so important to continue to provide resources for small businesses, especially the ones that kept their doors open all throughout.
All right. Thank you, Sharon. Thank you for those thoughts. I appreciate everything you do for community, but also sharing with us your story. Mayor, I know our time with you is pretty brief today, but I want to make sure you don't, I do not want to be responsible for you being late to your next event, because I will be hearing it from your great team. So parting thoughts for us, given, you know, some of the, you know, our mission today is to make sure folks both know about the resources that we have across our federal government, but also vertically up and down state and local government. What do you want to leave our folks with as we kind of go through the rest of the sessions and planning, and also your thoughts in terms of just future vision on the small business realm?
Thanks, Mike. I'll send it once again. And I do apologize. I'm making a huge announcement again on our housing levy strategy, which is going to be probably the biggest investment that this city will be able to make toward the housing crisis. And so I have to go to another place for that. Now, having said that, so through our Seattle Restored program, we put around 30 minority-owned businesses, BIPOC businesses, small businesses in vacant storefronts. We're going to put 45 more. And so we're looking for opportunities for you to help me activate parts of the city that need activation. Now, we think that this is going to be, and quite candidly, a step not only in the right direction, but I talk constantly to mayors in other cities about what they're trying to do. And one reason why I'm so excited about Mike Fong, my friend and brother in the Biden administration and the SBA leaders here, is because we're looking at how we could change. I always say, give us resources, we can show the country what we can do with them here in Seattle. Because we have a vibrant API community. I make no bones about it when I talk about how they've worked with me my entire life. Funny story, when my grandparents had come here from Japan many, many years ago, they had a grocery store. And the grocery store was doing okay, but it wasn't doing what they were hoping it would do. And they realized that one thing would sell out all the time before the groceries, and that were flowers. And they said, let's scratch their head a little bit. And what they did was let's scrap the grocery store, and they went all in on the flower shops. And you may recall Garland Florists on Jackson Street. You may recall Cherryland Florists. Those are my mother's sisters. And they were thriving. Of course, the government did take them when they were interned during World War II. And I tell that story to say that the beauty of your businesses is you know how to be nimble. You know how to think on your feet. You know how to run a business more than others. We've seen it time and time again. That's the opportunity that our administration are committed to. So we have people inside the tent, so to speak, like Shara in our Office of Economic Development. We're working closely with the SBA. And I'm going to say this in my closing. If we fall short, give us a little grace. Because I have a tough job, right? I mean, it's one thing to just try to fill the potholes and make sure you're safe. And by the way, Harold, completely rejuvenate downtown, too. And, I forgot to tell you, you're down about 500 police officers, but keep everyone safe as well. That's okay because our community, we don't make excuses. We take the hand that we're dealt and we work hard. There's no substitution for hard work. Everyone in this room knows that. There's no substitution for hard work, and all you want is to be treated fairly and have access to opportunity. That's what our administration is about. So this partnership, this guy's working me to death, by the way. He keeps, do this, do that, do this. It feels good because it is good. It's good work. So we look forward to partnering with you. Thank you for coming out. People that have worked in city government, thank you for being part of it, of what we're trying to do. And this community is awesome. So thank you very, very much for being here today.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor Harrell. One final round of applause, and I'm making sure that I reserved at least 2 minutes of selfie time for the mayor before he gets out of here, right, as he gets mobbed on the way out. But again, Mayor Harrell, thank you for your time with us today. Shara, thank you for your insights, and again, best of luck with your business, and hopefully we can continue to be with you on this journey. So thank you, everybody. Great. Yes, let's do it. Great, thanks guys.